Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It's been a week in which some people really did have to visit Rwanda. Elon Musk went to war with Twitter, a grown man lost a baby, and Russians became the new anti-vaxxers. Welcome back to the Lager and Ideology podcast, everybody, and a special welcome also to Charlie joining us today and also joining us in the future, we hope. And happy birthday to Ruben as well. So, chaps, what are you drinking today?
Charlie, you go first. You're the new one.
Well, I've got a nice selection. I've got a cause.
Okay.
It was a relative's 18-year-old 18th birthday. Yeah, it was a relative's 18th recently, right? And they had a load of beer for this party, and they had it left over. So I just took a load. So I took a cause.
Mm-hmm.
I took which is fun.
Could be a Bud Light.
No, Carlsberg, which I hate. Doom Bar, which come on, it's getting better. And then when I was in Tesco today, I saw this Bavaria here. It was £1. It was £1 for this 500 milliliter, half a litre bottle was £1, and I had to have it.
It feels
it wasn't even a club card offer. It wasn't an offer. It was just £1. That's just how much it costs. So
it's a bit like the sort of last things left in the ice bucket at a barbecue in Essex.
Yeah.
I went for quite posh. I've actually been down to. I go to this local craft shop, and this is a. What do you call those things? A growler, and then you get like your craft beer. They fill it up from a draft thing, and then and it's pretty cheap actually for what it is.
Oh,
it's
you're not gonna neck it from the. Go on, for the thumbnail, mate. Do it for the fucking thumbnail. Neck it.
Yes. I should also note, actually, I'm going to be drinking out of this Punk IPA glass here, which my girlfriend stole from a Wetherspoons.
You got to.
So,
which is okay.
You've got to.
Which I think we enjoy.
We've all seen Fight Club here. We've all seen Fight Club, and that's what you do. Yeah. Well, I've got.
What is that sound?
I've got to close the balcony door, have I?
Yeah.
Well, they're taking the bins now. Fuck me.
Sorry, guys.
Alfie.
He'll be back. Yeah. So,
sipping out of a growler.
I think while he's gone, what a knob he is.
Quite right.
But I think part of the reason why Ruben was keen to invite you on is because he thinks we agree too much. I think we were talking about this. We sort of agree too much. So, are you sort of a right libertarian or something that's going to have views that? Because I think Ruben thinks I'm a wild communist, and that you and I are going to have some really interesting.
No. I think it's more likely that you two will have conflicting viewpoints on certain things. That's what I think.
I don't. I mean,
I didn't say I was drinking yet.
Oh, sorry, Ruben. Go on.
Well, we got 2 tinnies, 3 the Netherlands Juicy IPA, and then to make it so it's 4 drinks, I'm gonna top it off with soju every time.
Like Korean rice wine or something. So earlier, Ruben messaged us in the group chat saying "Oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to drink today," which we totally rejected. As a suggestion, because obviously this is the lager in Israel.
No, to justify it, I want to explain. I've just had a 5-day fucking Easter weekend of drinking every day, and then it was my birthday yesterday, so the drinking continued to a 6th day. So I thought, I don't feel bad, but I think something bad will happen. It kind of feels like that. I feel fine, but it's probably I don't know. My body will trick me and then kill me. I don't know.
But now
you decided to drink a spirit instead of 2 beers.
Yeah, you sort of got a bit weird on that one. You've sort of you've gone wild. Then you've 2 beers and some Korean rice wine is much more.
Look, it's 17%. I was told by an Indonesian friend of mine that the way to use the fresh flavor soju is you have a beer and then you pour a bit of this in with it, and that's how you do it. Oh, that's what they said to do. That's what I'm doing.
No, it's true. That is what you do.
Yeah.
So anyway, welcome everyone, and we're gonna cover some topics: 4 beers, 4 drinks, whatever Ruben's on, and 4 topics, and then hopefully, we'll see if there are some, because I think it's interesting. I mean, if I wouldn't be surprised if we agree more than you think on things.
I get the impression that we kind of agree insofar as I don't know, a bit of chaos is nice, and the elites are the problem. And democracy was a mistake.
I was gonna say that, I think we should revert to some kind of monarchism setup again.
Based.
Die for the king, etc. Which is basically where Britain was at socially in like 1940.
Who would be your king if you had to sort of appoint one today?
My
if
king
you could just choose.
would be. Can I appoint myself?
Yeah. Would you do that?
Would I be king? No, I wouldn't want to be king.
I'd appoint you as well.
Why? I don't want to be king. Is that why you do it? Because I don't want to be it. So you'd be like...
I wouldn't appoint myself though. I mean, I'd definitely appoint someone I felt like I could use to my advantage rather than.
I see. Yeah.
Anyway, this is not.
Yeah, it's not the subject. It's not the subject. I'm distracted by the making of my drink. It's like an alchemy situation. So you guys just do something.
Poured the beer extremely well. I will say that for you. So what we normally do, Charlie, which we'll do today, although we're going to have to redistribute these tasks in future. What we normally do is take turns to introduce the topics. I can't remember whose is whose, but I think I'll just start, and then Ruben, you can go next, and then in future we'll sort that out. But the first thing, we usually start with a serious topic, as our very few listeners, but loyal listeners, thanks everyone. No, we start with a couple of serious topics, and then we sort of slide into a couple of more sort of controversial and/or silly topics as we get towards the third and fourth beers, which for you is a doom bar.
Of note here is that our silly subject is do we spoil subjects before we get there? I don't remember what we're like.
Well, I did. I mean, I sort of said what they were in the intro in my.
Our third subject, which you've highlighted as a silly one, is Cristiano Ronaldo losing a baby. So, you're smiling.
I did think my joke in the intro was a bit edgy as well on that, but you know what? I've decided to go even further when we actually get to that subject.
I noticed the phrasing of that was like, a grown man? Can you believe it?
I was wondering, like, is he doing this for the ambiguity of who we're speaking about, or is he doing this as a backhanded, like, insult? I wasn't quite sure.
Well, we'll get to it,
discussing
guys.
A subject, yeah, we're not. Right, subject number 1. All right, we've done enough fucking around. Refugees to bloody Rwanda.
We start with the most serious. And can you do a timer, Ruben, so that we stick to it? I feel like one of the charms of this podcast is the rigid rules that don't get broken.
All right, the timer started. Go.
I mean, I think we should cover this because, I mean, I don't have a great deal of interesting things to say about it, but I think it's unbelievable, really, that this is where we're at with this Ukraine thing. And basically people are flooding out Ukraine 5 million at a time to save their lives. And Britain's kind of solution is, what we'll do is like get some African country to be this kind of like holding space where they can all kind of flock to. And then we then like cherry pick which ones we think are most legitimate to come and join us in our lovely little country over here. And then they come from there. So, and I found it really interesting as well that it was the religious people coming out with the criticisms, like it was Archbishop of Canterbury and other like major church figures who were like the first to sort of oppose this and say like, bloody hell, like, this is just completely inhumane. Like, you can't just like herd people to Rwanda. And so I sort of thought, are we in such a shithole of society today that we actually need the church again to get us out or something?
Oh, Charlie will like that. He'll like that one.
Ruben, do you want to respond first?
You can go in at any time if you had something that you thought of, but I only know about this because my mum mentioned it on the phone. I can't remember, like the other week. And I mean, it's always nice to have an excuse just to talk about how awful, like, Priti Patel is. That's always nice. So I guess I can at least do that for you.
Well, ironically named Priti Patel.
Yeah, it's a name that you would think is, she'd be nice, maybe. I don't know. It is a bit weird to just send them to Africa, isn't it? I wasn't sure if this was specifically about the Ukraine thing or if it was just a general policy Britain was going ahead with now for all. And I also was under the impression it was men without families coming to the country. I thought that was it as well. But I could be wrong about that, which is very much like... Again, I thought this was a more general policy. So the way I interpreted it was, well, it's like, we've had enough of you bloody Muslims, because that seems to be Britain's still like big hang up. You can go and be bloody Muslims elsewhere. So fuck it, you're going to Africa. That's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of with you there, Ruben. Like, I understand this to be more of a general thing as opposed to just a response to the Ukraine.
In fact, my impression was
situation.
it wasn't for the Ukrainian refugees. My understanding was we were being friendly to them still because they're nice white refugees from Europe.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. But again, I've only read. In fact, no, I skimmed one article and listened to my mum, who is famously misinformed by like the BBC.
But it's using. I mean, you're right. You're right that this isn't. They're not going to pay for people to go from Ukraine to Rwanda. But I suppose the point is more that they're using a moment where we're saying, and they're obviously doing the same bureaucratic thing with the Ukraine situation, because they're saying open borders, we welcome all the Ukrainians, but at the same time they're making it bureaucratically impossible for anyone to actually come and settle here and so on. So this is basically the strategy of this Tory government, is to superficially say that we are, really open to refugees and we support migration and we want to support people because we're humanitarians and so on, but then to make it as difficult as humanly possible for people to actually take advantage of those things that they've promised. And that's
we're really open to refugees so long as they're not to our country. All right, we love them, but
exactly, let's hold them in it. And I mean, so this thing, I mean, and even if you're right, Ruben, about and like you haven't read so much about it, but if you're right about the question of like single men without families and so on, I mean, that's in a way, and even like I get the point, but that's actually an extreme form of cruelty, isn't it, against single men without families? To be like, you're going to be shipped off to.
It's like, I don't know, World War II, send the kids off to the country. But
and Rwanda has channeled loads of money into British institutions. I mean, they're the supporters of they're the sponsor of Arsenal Football Club, for example. Visit Rwanda was the sponsor of Arsenal Football Club, and Rwanda has been famous for like channeling loads of money into British economy. So clearly there is some kind of deal going on here which is beneficial to both parties, that Britain is kind of orchestrating, and the losers are obviously the refugees themselves.
I suppose the thing, my response to this whole thing is, and this is always my criticism of these conversations, is the word refugee is a very loaded and emotive term, because it's not only refugees that this is being done to. It's just, I mean, I understand the context I've seen this spoken about in is for the the sea people, the people that come across the Channel from France in dinghies and such, and whilst certainly some of them are refugees, there's also a lot of illegal immigration, and this is where it gets spicy, I think. Because I don't know. I suppose the thing is, illegal immigration is a crime, and if your first act on entering the country is a crime, it doesn't exactly bode well for the future. And of course, I do have sympathy for these people, but the other side of this is France is not a country that's at war. France is a perfectly comfortable country to exist in, but obviously England's better, which is why they make the journey across the Channel to get here in the first place. But I think Priti Patel, what I read of Priti Patel, her whole message, her whole point of this was, we do essentially what you've said, Ruben, which is we support refugees and immigration, just not to here. And I don't think that's entirely legitimate, because her whole thing was there must be necessarily a limit at some point. And I think that there were many worse solutions than having a kind of
it's a one-way ticket to fucking Rwanda, though. It's not even a return. It's a one-way ticket. Well, there you go.
You can't do that
in Africa. Cunt.
Maybe, but Rwanda isn't, it's not the worst country in the world. And, it's funny. It's
worst country. Venezuela probably is worse.
I mean, I saw a video came out. A video came out of Rwanda it was essentially Priti Patel's equivalent in Rwanda said, they just gave this video where they it's as if there was it's as if there was a script given to her by the English government to read out, because it uses all the terminology that would appeal to the kind of soft British public. There's a lot of talk of how inclusive and diverse Rwanda is, and how welcoming, and this, that, and the other. So, it does seem like there is a concerted effort to brand Rwanda in a particular way to kind of soften this blow to the people who are against it?
I do think you're onto something here, Charlie, and I guess I do want to go back to this kind of. I mean, we're not going to solve the refugee crisis on the Lager and Ideology podcast, nor should we try.
We can try,
but I think you're onto something in terms of a lot of this discourse is sort of reliant on the assumption that Rwanda is somehow sort of, some kind of hellish third world chaotic place, like some sort of when criminals were sent to Australia in the 19th century to sort of fight amongst themselves. And
that's
so
what they want. They want another Australia. That's what Britain's after.
There is a weird contradiction in the sort of Guardian liberal woke responses to these things, which is on the one hand to say, goodness me, how awful they're sending people to Rwanda, and then on the other hand to be like, but Rwanda is perfectly fine. They don't know how to sort of, people don't know how to understand this. And I think for me, and this would be an argument against what you said, just because Ruben's asked me to do that, is that I don't think this is about a ranking of, or implied we should, this isn't about a ranking of countries. Like it's not about saying, is Rwanda too bad to go to? And you, in your description of the Channel crossing, you sort of said, well, France is fine, but England's even better. I don't think that migration works like that. Like people are trying to get from countries that have got a lower ranking in a league table to one up. It's more like people try and live with family or friends, or like when somebody has been displaced, like from a place where basically it's unlivable, they want to live somewhere where they've got some kind of connection. It could be something really arbitrary, like I saw it on the TV and liked it. Or it could be like I've got a second cousin or somebody who became a successful refugee to that country before and made a shop there or something. So it's far more likely to be based on personal reasons why people choose certain countries and why they travel miles.
Or they speak a bit of English.
Or they speak a bit of English, which is, you're spot on. That's probably the number one reason.
Obviously, African nations, there's going to be a lot of French speaking and English speaking because of our histories of like colonialism in those countries. I say "our" as if I'm not a victim technically.
Exactly.
On a heritage level.
Yeah, it's not. It's not like it's not like there are these kind of those people want to drag themselves up from the lowest to the highest possible country they can manage. It's just this is not how it works.
That's a good point, but I'd still argue that there will have been there certainly will be people who are coming to England, for example, to live with family who are already here. I think that's most definitely the case. But there still will have been a patient zero, if you want. There still will have been an original person to have come here, and the question is why did they come here? Why did the original member of this family, who is then having the rest of their family join them, why did they come here in the first place? And I would still make the case. I'd still make the case that that's because this is a very desirable country to live in. The NHS, various other sort of welfare offerings that places like France, for example, don't have.
They do. They have a very robust healthcare system.
No, but in general, I more mean in general, like welfare in general, like the offerings in this country.
Yeah.
That's France.
Well, if it was as easy to get access to those things in France as it is in England, then
but again, I'm sure
would probably argue they'd stay.
There's plenty of immigrants to France, I'm sure, but we wouldn't know about it. We wouldn't, because we're not going to be told about it. We're only going to be told about British interests.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, Ruben. That it's one of the things we talked about before. Like that, everybody thinks that the British NHS is uniquely special, but pretty much all countries in Europe have an equivalent.
Yeah, I've had surgery. Yeah, I've had my most significant experiences in a different country.
So it's more like ideology. It's more ideology and media, which gives this impression of Britain as the sort of country that looked after people than actual reality. But the other thing is
invented medicine. I'm pretty sure anyway.
Who did? Britain.
We invented surgery and medicine, and
did we?
Probably invented paracetamol or something. Yeah, it was last week or something.
You make my point for me.
But I can't remember what the rest of my point was anyway. But I think some of that's kind of the illusion of Britain and the sort of idea of Britain as a sort of promised land for people who when they get here in reality do struggle as much as they would in say France or anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I think also like this. Yeah, what you just said, the idea Britain or England being presented as a kind of promised land, kind of shining jewel. I don't think that's entirely like, when Tony Blair opened the borders when he was Prime Minister, I think that was very much the message that he wanted to send. And so, and this obviously the mass immigration project is his project. And again, my position is that it's essentially it can't go on forever, and it's worth having the conversation about the fact that it's not been an unvarnished good for this country. And as such, I do think that there are, this sort of issue we're talking about now, the Rwandan, policy, I think is a fairly, what would you say? It's quite
innocuous.
Yeah, it's innocuous, but it's also a little bit.
Well, this whole time I've kept finding myself wanting to refer to other things and be like, no, but we're not talking about that, Ruben. We're talking about the Rwandan thing. And then I'm like, well, what the fuck do I say about that? And then I just don't say anything.
It's quite messy. I think that's my point. And it sounds, and it's possible to make it sound really bad. It's very easy to frame it as we're shipping off these poor, innocent set upon refugees. Again,
these lovely Christians to go to.
Yeah, to go to this shithole backwards African country. You can frame it like that if you want.
I would have loved to use terms, but
I think this is not a bad take. I mean, I don't really agree because I think I suppose my position is it is extremely bad as a strategy that the government would, but at the same time, the liberal sort of Guardian reader response to it is equally stupid.
Because it's not. Why are we sending them there? It's not like, wait, that's an inhumane thing to do. It's like, why are you saying it's bad?
Yeah, and
it's really nice actually.
The question of religion, which we didn't really come to, and I know we're running out of time on that, is kind of important there because in that sense, I initially said, are we in such shit that we actually need religious figures to help us? But actually, I think Charlie's point made me think that what you're looking at there is how clueless the religious figures are when it comes to actually understanding what goes on in global politics. So you've then got a choice between these kind of quite nasty conservative strategizers and then this quite ridiculous return to traditionalism that doesn't even understand what the hell's going on. Maybe
it's interesting because I don't know if you saw, I don't know if you said this, but the Church of England. Okay, the Church of England is one of the bodies that kind of came out against this. And interestingly enough, I mean, there's an old saying which is, you're an atheist? Oh, go join the Church of England, which kind of speaks to this issue that I'm about to talk about, which is the Church of England is responsible for converting a lot of, immigrants from Muslim countries so that it's not possible for them to be deported. Because to deport an ex-Muslim to a Muslim country would result in them likely being killed, because apostasy is, of course, a crime punishable by death in Islam and in Islamic countries. And interestingly enough, the guy who went to bomb the Liverpool hospital a few weeks or months back, I don't remember when it was. I don't know if you heard about that. Yeah, it failed, but he had gone through that very process. He'd been through this process that the Church of England runs, where essentially they get the documents signed to say that you are a Christian now, so that you can't be deported back to the country from which you came. And, this guy then went on to try and bomb a women's hospital in Liverpool.
Yeah, but then
so once again, I think there's a conversation to be had.
There's one guy
absolutely.
in an ocean of people.
It's
one guy and time's up, guys. We need to move on. My beer is full. I hope your beers are full. You need to open your beer.
I've just done it.
You need to drink it straight down now.
Yeah. See, we're experienced with this. We know we pace it pretty well.
You can't just leave it. Yeah, there we go.
Next week.
What's the next one?
Cause next.
Elon Musk. You want to do this, Ruben?
Yeah, Elon Musk. And I'll start a timer. Elon Musk wants to buy Twitter. And some people view it as he's going to create a free speech platform. And other people would argue, oh, so you just mean more racism. And it's like...
What do you argue?
I kind of like the idea of Elon Musk owning Twitter.
Yeah, me too.
I think it'd be fucking funny if he owned Twitter. Imagine every time something goes on Twitter, you just at Elon Musk, like, what's going on? He'd be like, oh, sorry about that. And then he would be an active owner of a weird fucking platform with millions of users. Just way funnier than Jack fucking Dorsey. He's like the same as Elon Musk, except he does yoga, and has less money. He's just like a cunt, but he does yoga and has less money and isn't funny. That's it. That's fucking Jack Dorsey.
And has a stupid beard as well.
He has a shit beard. I prefer Elon Musk's fucking hair that regrew recently.
Yeah.
I want to agree and say that, we don't live in the kind of communist utopia that I would like to live in, where the internet is, co-owned by the people and so on, and we don't have tech corporations.
Like the old days.
We live in quite a weird world where a couple of tech bros have enormous influence and power, even if they're absolutely weird people like Mark Zuckerberg. And if I had to pick one tech bro to run my global network, it would be Elon Musk, because I think he's genuinely nuts, and it's interesting, whereas I think the others are not genuinely nuts. They're absolutely awful people who have really clear strategies to make the most money or use people to the best of their advantage, or to get in bed with the American government and join a Pentagon group of thinkers to sort out the NSA or whatever. Whereas Elon Musk, I think he's just about mad enough to sort of run this thing in a way that's not completely corrupt. So yeah,
this is the most interesting thing about it for me, is it doesn't actually look like it's really, for a lot of the players involved, it doesn't actually seem to be much about money, because I think that BlackRock and Vanguard and other such companies are, they have great investments in Twitter, and they, their number one over all things, their number one priority should, by all accounts, be money, because that's what those companies exist. They exist to generate money. But in this case of Twitter, when Elon Musk has been putting in his, when he put in his bid, BlackRock and Vanguard, they kind of shored up their investments, and they were against Elon Musk buying Twitter, despite the fact that it would make them quite a significant profit, because obviously they would. He offered a far greater. He offered, his offer was far greater than the value of the company itself. So these multinational investment corporations would have made a profit, and yet they were still against him going through with it, because essentially I think this is about the power that Twitter represents. It's what it represents. It is the public platform. It's the public square, and as such, I think that's more valuable than any amount of money. Well, to an extent, but. I think ultimately this is not. I think it's far more complex. This issue is far more complex than simply money. There's a lot more at play here. I think it's a lot more about power and influence. It's almost like a Game of Thrones-esque, power struggle between all of these different players.
Is Elon Musk a Robin Hood figure? Is that it? He's not the fucking trading app by actual Robin Hood. Is that it?
I don't know if I'd go that far.
Would it be better if you owned Twitter? Probably would be. Be funny.
Well, I think that Sorry, Alfie, go.
No, I wasn't going to add much. You go ahead. I just think, I was just going to say that the whole of tech life is this kind of, movie-style power struggle. It happened with the 5G thing with Huawei, and the who was going to grab the most of the 5G space and so on. We're not out of that. It's just I just suppose I think Elon Musk is kind of, apparently he's the richest. Is that right?
That's true. Yep, that's correct.
Yeah. Well, he's the richest one who's actually declared as well.
Well, yeah, declared.
They're going to be trillionaires who are paid not to be on any fucking lists, because they're like. Kind of really learn about.
Yeah, we sort of covered him on the podcast so many times, because we did the Grimes one, and we talked about how she was. Who was she going out with? Chelsea Manning.
Yeah, Chelsea Manning.
Yeah, that's wild.
I just think he's sort of and I'm sure it wouldn't make any difference. Like, don't get me wrong. This is not the way in which any kind of social change happens. It really doesn't matter what happens with Twitter's ownership, but it could at least be a bit chaotic. And okay, maybe an interesting thing to say is, I sort of semi-secretly wanted Trump to be president, so that he would disrupt this kind of ridiculously long-standing secure system of, wankers who are all in bed with each other, being a couple of families running a country. And I think could maybe see small fragments of that happening here. Like, at least he introduces an element of chaos that maybe people could take advantage of.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's the fact that a lot of the mainstream media has come out against him. It seems that he has really shaken, the cathedral's foundations by this play that he's made.
It's interesting watching the divide in media and the way they refer to Elon Musk, because some are really of the mind. They like to present him as crazy Elon, wacky Elon's doing something wacky again. Even though most of you are driving his fucking cars, but not in England really. I suppose that's the thing. I'm in Norway, so I've been everyone's driving fucking Teslas here, so you see them everywhere. I'm constantly reminded of Elon Musk, but are they afraid of Elon Musk? Do they really think? I guess they. Yeah. Do they think? Oh well, Elon Musk will just stop us being able to put shit on Twitter. He'll just stop us from doing it.
Absolutely. And you know what?
Because
imagine a situation where Musk is. Imagine a situation where Musk is in front of the Senate in the way that Zuckerberg was called in front of the Senate to sort of answer these free speech questions in the most stupid, moronic way he did, where he simply said, basically, I'll do whatever you want. I don't even fully understand what's going on, but I'll introduce whatever measures so that we don't say things that the American government doesn't like. And, I just don't think that experience would be the same with Elon Musk. I think it would really flare up a load of debates.
It would. And also, I mean, I guess to be fair to Elon Musk, he doesn't strike me as somebody that wants to have sex with children. So that's pretty good as well, compared to many of the billionaires.
I mean, I have been known to defend people who have sex with children on this podcast. So.
Maybe, no, I mean, yeah, of course.
But only if they're Michael Jackson. So
only if they're Michael Jackson, who maybe didn't. And if you believe a documentary, then you're a fucking idiot. If you listen to a documentary and you think that's a fact that happened because a documentary presented it, you're a fucking idiot.
I did watch that Jimmy Savile one though that was out recently.
He did fuck kids, bro.
Alfie, are you about to say that Jimmy Savile was innocent as well?
No. I was going to use Savile as leverage to say that Michael Jackson was innocent, like throw Savile under the bus so that I can, release someone else. It's quite a good documentary. It's absolutely insane. Anyways, but nothing to do with it.
I imagine that Elon Musk owning Twitter is like he stops all basically verified accounts just stop happening. He's just like, enough of blue check liberals. Get them out of there. No more. Yeah,
exactly. Well, that's good. Get rid of that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. No more blue check. Fucking get rid of the blue check conservatives.
The American
Fox conservatives on there. Get out of there. Americans, fuck it. No more of them on Twitter. Had enough of it.
I do think ultimately the people we're talking about, it is fear. They are scared of Elon Musk, and they're scared of what he's going to do. But not for Ruben. You sort of suggested it would be because he's going to not allow them to say things. But I think it's actually the opposite. I think that they're scared. We saw this recently with, I don't know if you know Libs of TikTok. They're on various platforms.
That account sometimes gets it right. Other times it's like, you've missed the joke there, guys. That was the joke.
Yeah, but I think that these people, again, I use the term the cathedral, which, many in the circles that I sort of move in use to refer to kind of academia, mainstream media, government, the kind of overriding left-wing ideology of the time that we live in at the moment.
He's a domestic terrorist.
That's me. But I think that they fear him because they understand that when these ideas are exposed, when the general public are exposed to these ideas, they reject them. And so outside of any, I saw something on it was a 4chan post once, which was the reason that places like Twitter have to be regulated is if left unmoderated, left-wing ideas always lose because the general public, generally speaking, will reject them. And so I think that's what they're most scared of. They're not scared of what he's going to stop them from saying. He's scared of what the general public, how the general public will react when they see what it is they're saying.
Well, I agree with exactly half and strongly disagree with the other half of what you said.
Yeah.
So I agree that they are not scared of what you initially said. Ruben's point isn't right, that they're scared that he'd stop them. They are definitely mostly scared of a free speech world. And I totally think that Elon Musk is pro-free speech and that the liberals would be threatened by a free speech world. And I think that is something we should support.
I think Elon Musk would, in the same way just to clarify my position, in the same way the service internet has like dominated the internet, and now the internet is really just like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, etc., and not what it used to be. In the same way as that has happened, Twitter also has that, where just far too much of what you're seeing is just corporate nonsense, just pushed by the Telegraph or the Huffington Post or New York Times or some crap like that. And Elon Musk would probably just make it so that Twitter isn't so heavily biased towards pushing that to people. I don't know if he would stop them entirely, but he'd just be like, no more of that. Other people can have a go now.
Yeah,
you can have a go now.
No, okay, no. I mean, you were just the straw man in that. So you didn't actually say that.
Thanks, guys.
But I suppose
racially motivated.
But the thing I totally disagree with in what Charlie was saying is that this idea, and obviously this is a big issue on the left and right, there's this idea that basically the left has come to dominate sort of social discourse, and that I think
you've been tricked into thinking that the left dominates social discourse, because when you look at the Conservatives, right-wing party, they're in power. Every left-wing party now that is in government, or the big ones in Europe or the US, they're not even left-wing. They're like centre-right.
Well, exactly. And we've sort of talked about this before on the podcast, but I think that we really need to just draw a distinction between, for purposes of this, for example, let's just draw a distinction between like left and liberal, because what I think's happened is that our Europe is run by the right, the conservative right,
satanic
economically economically and politically, but almost deliberately, the liberals, let's say, have been allowed to dominate and control discourse and popular culture and cultural life. So I do agree with Charlie's position that there's this liberal attitude that polices and controls the media and who gets to say what and who gets to hear them and so on. So I totally sympathize in a way with not just you, but people on the 4chan right, for example, who feel extremely frustrated by a situation in which basically the entirety of cultural discourse is dominated by this kind of bunch of liberals, right? But they are not in power. If you look at like who is in government and so on, it's really the conservative right that's in governments, while the liberals are allowed to sort of have their space to play their little stupid woke games in the media discourse. And then the left, I think that's a totally separate category who is not part of either of those.
But then the conservative right that you're referring to isn't even a particularly conservative right.
Well, this is why I'm not. I don't want to I'm just going to confuse everyone, but I'm not even anti-Boris, because I think Boris is keeping the Tories from going further to the right. So it's all very confusing.
I think this is the problem with all these terms, is we all understand them to mean different things. Like, what you mean by conservative, left wing, whatever, liberal, I will understand as meaning a completely different thing. But when I think what I mean is and I think I have a bit of a theory about this. I think this goes all the way back to Marx, and beyond that, it goes back all the way to Rousseau. So this goes back to this is deep Enlightenment theory. I think the language itself and the tactics of the left are very, very powerful because they are designed to be that way. The language that the left uses is, by design, very, very persuasive and convincing to your average person because it all sounds really nice. Think anti-fascist, Black Lives Matter. Those are very modern examples. But you read Rousseau or Marx, and it's the language itself is powerful and convincing, even if the ideas that they're actually communicating using that language are nonsense. I can understand, having read the Communist Manifesto recently, having reread it and re-studied it, I can understand how, in the time of Marx, a working man would have read that and thought, actually, do you know what? I see this. I might be a communist. I think I might, this is really powerful, uplifting stuff. When in reality, the ideas themselves, when you actually understand the ideas, they're not what's actually. The ideas themselves are not what are powerful and convincing. It's the language that's used. And I think that's what I'm talking about, because the ideology itself, the prevailing ideology of the time we live in is not particularly left-wing, because it's not a workers-centric, seizing of the means of production idea. It's in some senses, a conservative, elitist, money-centric, corporate-centric ideology that favors those with money, with power, and seeks to keep those people with money and power in money and power. But they use the language and the tactics of the left because they are designed to be convincing and effective. And
so is the left really the problem then at that point?
Well, this is see that's
and
another
you can't
issue.
answer because you've got 7 seconds. Go on,
personally, I would say that I disagree with a lot of left-wing ideas, but that's a different issue. And there we go.
I mean, I have a lot to say in response to it, but I'm not going to interrupt the. No, I'm not going to interrupt the. No, this is not something that we should discuss and solve in a conversation. It's something that should go through the different topics and discussions and keep coming up and coming back. So I have plenty of responses and so on, but I'm not going to do it because the time's run out and it's time for the next beer. And the next topic.
The next one. The next subject.
Does anyone circle back as appropriate?
I am something of a knife enthusiast. I sell them.
He does sell them.
I literally do. I literally sell them for a living.
He works in a fucking kitchen sort of shop selling knives.
It's true.
I've
adopted a new sales strategy, which is, I say, the chef's knife, that's really good if your opponent is slightly smaller. Carving knife, perfect if you want to get an opponent at a distance. You'll get some real reach with that one.
And you find that funny?
Yeah, it's hilarious.
But what about when they're a victim of knife crime? And they just give you the Tesco meal deal stare. They just
double down. Say, well, clearly, you of all people need this. If you're pathetic enough to be a victim of knife crime, clearly you're the right person.
You needed a bigger knife, didn't you?
Yeah.
Kiss your teeth up, dickhead.
No, that should have been that. We should include that in the.
Fuck it can stay in. I'll just make sure I don't cut it out.
Leave that in. Right then, let's crack on because we've got 1 hour, but we also need to do the game for the patrons because some patrons, some 20-odd patrons have actually stuck with us through a month of inactivity, so we need to give them something. Okay then. Third topic, third beer. I got my beer ready. Everyone got their beer ready, guys?
Mm-hmm. Cheers.
We'll circle back to those battles about the left, but right now it's time to talk about a 37-year-old football player who unfortunately lost his child. I think I want to, having made a sort of edgy joke about that in the early part, and I think I'm planning to say some pretty mean things. So I'm going to say mean things about Cristiano Ronaldo. I'm definitely planning to do that. So, but I will just say to preface this, I have a daughter, and she was born in extremely dangerous circumstances and had to stay in intensive care for like weeks and weeks. So I'm not somebody who does not understand like the agony of a parent who faces the possibility of losing a child at birth and so on. So none of this should seem like I'm just being flippant or unthoughtful. But basically, Cristiano Ronaldo had twins. One of is his second bout of twins. One of them died at birth and the other survived. And this is obviously really sad. But what I think is important, why this is a topic, as Ruben's suggestion, a great suggestion, I think, is that during the Liverpool-Man United match yesterday, there was this kind of round of applause after 7 minutes of the match, Cristiano Ronaldo's number 7, to show universal solidarity. And the message of this is that even the deepest rivalries can be sort of usurped by humanitarian concerns when something like this happens. And my view is that it's ridiculous and, almost kind of fascist or fascistic, I suppose, in the structure of that. Like, we're all supposed to suddenly, though we disagree, agree on one particular thing and make this kind of really weird universal gesture of solidarity, like we were asked to do with clapping out the window for the NHS, like we're asked to do with minute silences, to kind of obey the system and all, put our differences aside for, as 1 minute before the whistle, Black Lives Matter. 7 minutes after the whistle, Cristiano Ronaldo's lost a kid. And I think that this is a sort of dystopian thing. And that's just before I finish, that's not to say anything about the fact that he is actually a rapist. So you're standing there clapping a rapist, but so it's all sort of wrapped up in this madness. But my concern is mostly that we live in a society that tells you what to think and feel, exactly when to think and feel it, and exactly what to do to show your thoughts and feelings.
But it also at the same time tells you that you're not allowed to feel anything. You're not allowed to feel. If we look at corporate work or jobs and the structures under which we work, a lot of the time it's very concerned with telling you not to feel anything. You shouldn't feel. This is work. Work and everything else separate. Work is separate. You're not allowed to introduce anything. But then equally asks increasing amounts of your time to be spent on work. So, and to that,
yeah.
That's sort of going too far away from Ronaldo, which is
Alfie,
really just, I don't know. Go on,
Alfie. I think it's interesting you use the word fascist because my instant response to this was, well, it's a tragedy, obviously, for any child to die like this, and it's going to be painful for the parent.
Children die all the time.
Let's move on. They die all the time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and it's going to be painful and tragic for the parent no matter what, but. I very much have the same attitude. I have the same attitude towards all celebrities and, members of the elite,
satanic pedophiles,
famous class, which is they have no business. We have no business being involved in their personal lives, and they have no business being involved in ours.
And when it suits them, it's thrust upon us.
And so we have this really strange, there's this idea in fascism that is, it's the idea of the ethical state and by extension the ethical corporation. It's this idea that corporations and by extension the those who represent them ought to have a kind of a design on society, a kind of view of what should be, and they should push that, which I think that's fundamentally a fascist idea. If you read Mussolini and others, then that is exactly what they say of corporations and of government. And so this idea that we need to be that we need to have this kind of bleeding heart, that we all do need to come together for this celebrity, and have this kind of, like you say, Alfie, this putting aside of our differences. I don't know. It's there's something about it that's really strange to me.
Yeah, I agree.
On a personal, on an individual basis, I feel like it's very much it's fine to be very sympathetic to Ronaldo for his loss. I think that as an individual choice, that's appropriate, maybe. But when it takes on this, it's the headlines, and it's when it takes on this kind of it's when it takes on this like mob like depersonalized aspect that it gets weird for me, because it's just the same as you say. It's the clapping for the NHS, it's the kneeling for Black Lives Matter. It's all the same. We're towing the party line, and kind of foregoing our individuality in favor of appearing a certain way.
They call it in football a lot of the time. Let me bring in my thing about the word class. Everywhere in football, they love to refer to it as class. Oh, it was class that when that footballer demonstrated basic human decency towards another human being. Perhaps that human being was lesser than him, and they were in the audience, in the crowd. But he demonstrated such class. And the use of the word class is fun, because then you think about, I don't know, maybe class differences. It brings up that. And I suppose maybe Charlie was kind of getting in that direction with class. And at this point, I'm of the mind that you've got everyone and then the elite. That's it.
Yeah.
Those are the only two classes.
Yep.
Fucking everyone and then the elite.
Well, I mean, I agree with
middle
that.
Middle class, not real. Not real. Doesn't exist.
Well, I agree with that, and that is a Marxist view. I mean, for Marx, like the academic class, for example, your lecturers, your journalists, your media classes, what Charlie referred to as your cathedral, should also be seen as kind of workers. Because the distinction between the working class, who are the ones exchanging a salary for labour, and the ones who have ownership, rights over businesses and profit, which comes from those kind of things, actual ownership generating profit. So, in a way, I think that's right. But anyway, I think that is going a bit far away from the Ronaldo thing. But and I think but I think you're onto something important, Ruben, with this kind of class thing, which obviously this was in Liverpool, so class. Yeah. It was class. It was absolute pure class. Pure class.
Pure class. Yeah, pure.
But yeah. I mean, look, this is it. It is embarrassing, and I think what you both said is kind of right about this. And when I'm not in the business of just calling everything fascist when it's not, but aesthetically,
yes.
And the Black Lives Matter thing, which is supposed to be the opposite of fascism, has structural similarities with how fascism functions, and that is
You're speaking my language now.
And then the trouble is that because of the name, because of the label of it, when you disagree with it, it's like saying Black Lives don't matter. It's like no, I think Black Lives Matter doesn't matter. Black lives still matter.
Yeah. Exactly.
Black Lives Matter doesn't fucking matter.
And that is not a coincidence. That is it's by design that is the case.
It's by design. By
design. No, it is though. It's
Biden's America.
It's the weaponization of language, though. That is fundamentally what I mean. This is away from the Ronaldo thing, obviously, but it's fundamentally it's fascistic, and this weaponization of language that makes it seem as if you would disagree with this group, person, ideology, whatever it is, if you disagree with this, then you are evil. That is fundamentally.
But then, the trouble is, you sound like you're going down the like the Jewish problem conspiracy theory route. It's like, no, I'm not going down there. I know it sounds like it, but I'm not. I don't care about any of that. Leave me. I'm busy talking about Black lives right now. All right, fuck off. I don't care about the Jewish people right now. So it looks a bit messy at that point. Well, it's very messy because no matter what you say, once you reach a certain point, you have to acknowledge that, like I just did, and then no matter what you say after that, you sound like you're justifying it. It's like, I'm trying to get away from it again.
And I think another one.
Cristiano Ronaldo though did rape somebody in a hotel in 2009.
He did.
Correct. Yeah.
And admitted it. Yeah. But I think one other thing there that sort of to add to this conversation that is Ronaldo related is the role of corporations. Like one of the things that, and I would say to put this in a nutshell, the left and the right, not that we are them, can probably actually agree on this point about how the liberal media uses this kind of language, this kind of style of manufacturing consent through whatever methods they use. So, but what is happening here really is corporations. Nike with its Black Lives Matter campaign, Sky Sport endorsing everyone taking a knee, and then again Sky Sports saying, "Look at this pure class." As Ruben says, clapping for Ronaldo. It's right. On the one hand, let me say it this way about football. For years, the bourgeois class did not want the football class to be politicized. That's in fact why they gave them football in the first place, because that would just keep them happy and drunk, and they could shut up.
Bread and circuses.
Now you're looking at something really different, where football and the so-called working class are being invited into politics, but only if you sort of agree with it in this very kind of corporate way, where you do exactly what you're saying, you're told to say it.
See, I would argue they're not being invited into politics, because politics is the discussion. They're being invited into the cathedral. They're being invited into the ideology, because there is no discussion to be had.
Interesting. For such a religion advocate, though, you invoke the term cathedral. Invited into cathedral so that the priest can wield all the books and keep you all illiterate.
I think it's it's not a coincidence that religious language is used, though, because this does all very much have a religious undertone. The way it looks, the way it sounds, the way it all works is it mirrors religion in many ways. That's why the term the cathedral actually came about, is because of how this all does kind of appear in that way.
Yeah.
But I think back to
a cathedral. I suppose to strip it right down very quickly, cathedral means a ideological space which you're invited to enter on the condition that you believe exactly what you're told when you're in there,
but not to ever truly
and it's not. And I'd say
in any capacity.
Yeah, it's not just an ideological space. It's the most. It's like the core, the center of the ideological space.
Say it. I know you want to say it. It's 2 words you want to say.
Say what?
Go on, say it. Pure ideology. I know that's what you're getting.
Pure ideology.
It's terrible.
Wow.
No, that's what it is, though. It's the cathedral, because a cathedral is. There's a reason that this whole thing is not referred to as the church, Because that, in many ways, that almost sounds more appropriate. Because that's what historically, in England, for example, that's what it would have been referred to as. It's the separation of church and state. That's the kind of context in which that word would be used. The church as a kind of catch-all term for the religious movement of the time. But I think the cathedral is used because it has a far more. There's a grandness to that term. There's a certain. I don't know. It sort of invokes. Like, you imagine a cathedral. It's this great, like, Gothic structure, enormous stained glass windows.
I was going there. The big buildings, huge buildings that we commemorate that are dedicated to something. They're symbolic of something. So what we worship then, I don't know. God. But what made the cathedrals be built? And I guess it was like religion and the church hoarding huge amounts of money and power. And now corporations do the same thing. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's just changed. We went from, the symbolic of the other.
Twitter is your cathedral now. I mean, Twitter is the cathedral in which you on Sundays, everybody went to church and saw people from different families.
Fucking priest.
I'd say Twitter is the cathedral of the cathedral.
Yeah.
That's why Elon needs to be in charge of it. He needs to be the priest to the vicar.
He does.
Anyway, listen, we ran out of time.
Flip some tables.
No, we got a few more minutes. I didn't start the timer immediately. I think you have like 3.5 minutes.
I think we've got a bit more to say about class. We didn't talk about the way that class can be used as a sort of absolute class, like a football word, but then also it implies other things, So I think you've got more, Ruben.
Yeah, I just have to wonder with the way the word it's so class, and obviously I know it's classy is what it's going to be derived from, and classy obviously has origins in the suggestion that the upper classes were. That's what it was to have class.
More virtuous.
You either for once upon a time, if you were working class, you did not have class. You were not of class, and those who were better than you. They were of class. So the word's origins in that, especially in football, and hearing people say, that's pure class, that it's almost like, I could never do that. I'm going to prostrate myself to you. I could never do that. Yeah. Or we can only do it collectively. The Liverpool fans can clap for 1 minute because a rapist lost his fucking son. How many people lose children every day? I do not fucking care that Cristiano Ronaldo lost his son. I will say it right now. I don't care that he lost his son. Why should I care that Cristiano Ronaldo or any celebrity lost his son? I don't know them. They don't know me. And again, the fact that I even have access to information about them is a fucking problem. I don't want to. I don't care.
Ronaldo's the perfect example as well. Literally a rapist. I don't know if that was ever proven in court, but by all accounts, that seems to be the case.
All the evidence points to it.
It was proven it kind of is proven in court.
Yeah, and let's imagine you were in a. If you were in a small town, small community village type situation, and the local rapist loses their child. Why would anyone care? Why would anyone give them any sympathy?
Well, that's the thing,
because this is great.
I don't agree with that at all.
I think they would. In Britain, you'd get people being like, "Oh, well, poor them. It's such a, that transcends the crimes they've committed." For some reason, having a child.
I don't agree with you.
I think people would.
I don't agree with you either.
What are you going to say then?
No, I think we should care. I mean,
No.
Wait, we should care. I mean, like if somebody's a criminal and they've done something really horrific, that doesn't therefore blacklist them. Means they don't have feelings and empathy.
But why would I know about it? I'm not going to know about it. There probably are criminals who do awful things with lost children, but I don't know about it.
See, I
totally
do very
agree
much.
with that.
Yeah,
and I think it's a really important point in terms of what's going on in Ukraine. I know we've touched on it already, but when people saying I've got this massive dose of empathy for Ukrainian refugees, but Turkey actually invaded Iraq yesterday or day before yesterday. Not one mention, whatever. There's just no empathy channel there. Whereas there is big empathy channel for Cristiano Ronaldo losing a child. So this question of, I totally agree with you both. The relationship between the media and basically empathy channels is totally fucked. But I would still. Even if someone was a horrendous paedophile, I would still feel empathy with them when something went wrong. I don't think the answer is to say you don't deserve
Michael Jackson.
That's the problem.
Right.
The problem is people
I'm not of the mind of
deserves it.
An individual human life is as punishment, for their crimes. I'm not like that. I don't care.
Glenn Hoddle.
Yeah, I think it's just.
I really.
No, I don't care either because I don't know.
Why should I think about this? Why should I? There's plenty of suffering among people that I actually know.
Well, I think that's the thing. Like, it's why again. What? Yeah, exactly. Why should you care? You don't know Ronaldo, and yet there's a push to have you care about this issue. Why is that? It's and again, I think it fundamentally comes down to again, as I say, I reread the Communist Manifesto recently and portions of Capital, and I say this as a right-winger conservative, Marx was onto. He had some things bang on, like this idea. I don't think it's necessarily as simplistic as he would put it, but this idea of the divide between essentially the elite and everyone else, I think is true. It's observable in reality, and it's performative. That's what it is in its nature. This whole the applauding and the solidarity, to use the language of the left. I think I don't know. There's something really troubling about that to me, because it is essentially in the Soviet Union, there'd be standing ovations whenever Stalin spoke, because for fear of appearing out of line. That's something that.
Yeah, look. I agree. I don't think we're being particularly clever, or innovative by saying this, because for example, Charlie Chaplin's film *The Great Dictator* from the 40s. That film is about exactly what you said. So this film finishes with the scene where Chaplin is Hitler, and he says all of these liberal, left-wing, democratic ideas, and the crowd still absorb it exactly as if it's fascism. And the point of the film from 1933 or something, it's just to show that the in the world we live in today, the tactics of the fascist and the tactics of the liberal, are basically the same thing, and people will just consume that and believe in it, whether it's right, left, or liberal. So I think that's right, but not new for us to say. Just that's been there.
Are we out of time?
That's been happening.
Yeah, it is time to move on.
I think that.
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm moving on to this terrifying £1 beer now. So
you'll be fine.
Wish me luck.
I'm not mixing any more soju in.
I've finished my fucking gallon. I've done my 4 pints here, I think. Got 2. Oh no, yeah, this is the last one.
Yeah. This is the last subject. I was just checking what it was. This is
right then.
One.
Yeah.
So
he's got to pour his.
Charlie's doing it. Charlie's doing it.
Yeah, and it'll bring us all along for the last
better.
subject.
He's taking his time over.
Okay.
That's how the Conservatives pour. He poured it conservatively.
Indeed. So this last topic then. So Wimbledon has banned certain Russian and Belarusian tennis players, including Daniel. I don't know how you pronounce his name, Medvedev, from Wimbledon because of the war in Ukraine. And Alfie, as you said in the introduction, this is essentially Russians becoming the new anti-vaxxers. Speaking, of course, of Djokovic's ban in Australia. And I actually think that you've really hit on something there, because again, I'm going to go back to this motif that I keep touching on. It's the cathedral. The cathedral have decided that yesterday it was anti-vaxxers, even though in reality it was just Djokovic was not vaccinated. He wasn't necessarily against the vaccine. But the cathedral has decided that today the out group, worthy of social the social pariahs, the social pariahs of the day, are Russians today. What will it be tomorrow? We'll see.
I mean, it's been Russians for a few weeks, I guess, hasn't it?
Sure, yeah.
They've lasted a little while. To be fair, the Russians.
Yeah, I mean, I'd even make the case that the anti-vaxxers are still very much in that category. It's a little band of vagabonds that's growing by the day. But I mean, what do you guys think of this?
No, look, I mean, I totally agree with the way you introduced that.
Go on, Alfie. I'm just talking bollocks.
I think my internet's cutting out.
Yeah, your video
my internet cutting
is pretty poor. Your video is pretty poor in terms of the quality we're getting. Yeah. You got a solution for it, or you just? Is it?
No, I don't know. I don't know why it's giving me a little connection is unstable thing.
Well, I mean, your voice is coming through fine, and you're the one Oh, terrific. Well, okay, I guess we'll just carry on for a moment while he works that out.
Keep talking about how Russians aren't people. Go on.
Yeah, Russians aren't people. They don't deserve basic human rights or to be involved in any of global capitalism. Which I did see a lot of memes that were joking, like, Russians are unable to access this, and this, and it was like, oh, that's a good thing because they don't have to be a part of any of that shit. But then at the same time, I do think, like, yeah, it's all well and good to make those jokes, 4chan users, but let's be real, what would you do the moment you didn't have those? You piss your pants and shit yourself and cry because you wouldn't be able to fucking do whatever bullshit it is you do.
You can't watch It's Always Sunny on Netflix.
Yeah, you can't watch whatever it is you like watching on fucking Netflix or more likely on fucking Pornhub or something. I don't know. So, yeah. I was like, it's all well and good making the jokes, but it's pretty shit that Russians have been just like sort of cut out of the global economy to such an extent.
Well, yeah,
and not just global social economy as well.
You guys made this point last week, which is, not last week, last time, which is, clearly the people being targeted. Again, I'm just gonna keep using this term, by the cathedral. People being targeted by the West.
We're gonna need a little. I think go for another. Can you have like 3 minutes to just describe what the cathedral is?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's essentially the idea. It's the people who adhere to a very particular worldview, and these people it encompasses academia, the journalistic class, many politicians, and many a lot of sort of the administrative, the bureaucratic kind of elements of organizations, whether those organizations are governmental or corporate. It's the overriding and overruling ideology of those people, which is again, the way this is generally espoused, it's fundamentally leftist, adhering to particular dictums of the modern kind of left-wing view. It's kind of identity politics based. It has certain elements of critical race theory in it, feminism. It's essentially postmodern as well, in that it's power seeking. And views the world and kind of the fundamental human impulse as being power seeking. And so the cathedral is essentially, as I say, it's academia. Academia is the journalistic class. It's a lot of politicians it's essentially the people.
What about where does the term come from? Like 4chan?
Well, it's I don't know if you know, it's Curtis Yarvin coined the term, otherwise known as Mencius Moldbuck.
No, we don't know. This is what we need. This is what our listeners need. Yeah.
So I've read his work, and there are portions of it that I appreciate, but he's a genuinely not hyperbolically speaking, he's a genuinely far right thinker. And as I say, I can appreciate certain things of what he's saying. Like, he came up with the term, didn't come up with, but he popularized the use of the term like red pill. And he also came up with the cathedral as an idea. And I think the cathedral has been his best kind of contribution to the kind of cultural discourse. But, I'm when I use that term, as I say, I'm essentially talking about the journalistic class, many kind of politicians, academia, again, all of whom adhere to they all hold the same assumptions about reality. And many of those, as I say, they find their roots in academic feminism, critical race theory, and just left-wing ideology more broadly. Does that make sense? Is that kind of...
I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense, yeah. I've heard of these kind of terms and their application. It makes sense, yeah.
Okay, yeah, they're fun to use flippantly, but possibly shouldn't be taken too seriously.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
I have the feeling that,
because it quickly becomes like, so everything that isn't you is the cathedral then. Everything that isn't, it doesn't.
It is easy. It is easy to use it in that way for sure. I definitely see that criticism.
And it has the function really of sort of saying that everyone who is in this kind of particular language bubble can use these terms and see the other in these kind of
they've transcended and they know something you don't, which is typical of people with major personality disorders.
Yeah, It's essentially.
But then people that
essentially
diagnose personality disorders are a part of the
they're even worse.
Yeah.
But I think I think for me anyway, I would anyway. Let's not focus too much on what is this is supposed to be the most fun topic.
I speak once every 10 minutes, but when I do, it's utterly decimating for somebody. Devastating.
No, but I think. Okay, go on. Yeah.
No, go on, Alfie.
On the tennis, what I wanted to say, to go back to what we were talking about before, on the question of the tennis, I think this is actually really interesting and kind of cool that, I almost feel like the cathedral, if I'm using that term right, has kind of shot itself in the foot a little bit because with the Djokovic one, they were like, oh my God, he doesn't want to get a vaccine. So
this was also Australia. Australia is one of the major fucking epicenters of the cathedral in its most oppressive forms.
Yeah, well,
Australia is cringe.
The Australian government, especially when it comes to particular like COVID,
Yeah. And now we've got this, which of course we've talked about before on the podcast. I don't need to go over it. But clearly I do not think that Russian people should be punished for their government's actions. So you've now got this thing. Well, okay, now it's Medvedev. And actually, who the fuck has even watched any tennis in the last few years? Tennis is going through a lull. But weirdly, this is quite interesting. I feel like the liberal councillors, for want of a better word, the cathedral, they have targeted one tennis player for one thing and then another for another thing. Neither of which were so. This has actually made it visible what the structure is here.
You're exactly right, and that's exactly what the cathedral is. This you're bang on. This is exposed it's exposed that essentially the problem. You make a problem for yourself by going against a cathedral, and whether that's by refusing, in Djokovic's case, refusing a vaccine, or whether it's, in Medvedev's case, which is being Russian.
Being Russian.
It goes against the narrative, whatever the narrative of the day is. Yesterday it was, COVID and vaccines. Today it's Russia and Ukraine. But the way that it's done, the structure is the same. Yeah. And so, I think it's dangerous and it's scary, because as you say, and again, as you said in the last episode, why are we punishing the Russian people for the actions of their gangster?
There's some expectation that they're the only ones that can rise up from inside, and it's like, but what if they are just as powerless as we are right now as individuals to make any real change against oppressive government structures?
And that was your point. That was your point before. It's not as if we need to bring the Russian people on side. Sure, there are elements of the Russian people that do genuinely support the war and Putin himself, but there are plenty of them who don't. And it's not a case of bringing them on side. Yeah.
In his government, they're pretty shit.
Yeah.
One right here.
This beer is terrible, by the way.
Well, listen, the time must be up, but we
got 6 minutes. We got 5 minutes even.
And then we also have to record a game.
Yeah.
Okay.
A quick one.
But I just want to say on this last point, which is not going to take 6 minutes, but on this point that the way I see this, Charlie, and this is to you, I suppose, is that there's a lot, and also the way in which this term cathedral can be applied, that there's actually an enormous amount in common between, let's say, the online right and the sort of activist socialist left. And there's so much there that is agreed upon, and it just sort of goes at different directions at a certain point. So, with particular issue, yes, absolutely. The main enemy today, and I think this for sure, I'm not an anti-fascist in the sense that I am anti-fascism, but I wouldn't say I'm an anti-fascist because I don't think that fascism is the main enemy that we're fighting. I wouldn't define myself that way.
The great debate that a few years ago, especially when I was in sixth form, this was a big one, was feminism in 2013. It was, are you a feminist or are you not a feminist?
Or do you hate women?
Yeah, it was like that. And I had a guy I was in my sociology class with who was like, no, I'm not a feminist. But he used to argue as if he was coming from that point of, well, it's like if you say you're not one, then... But he genuinely was a cunt when it came to women. So it was just like, bro, you're undermining the whole other thing. You're just a dickhead. Whereas I, to this day, will just say, yeah, I'm a feminist. Fuck it. What are you gonna...
That's fine.
Either side have a problem with me. Don't care. I'll fight anyone.
And that's also my attitude, Ruben. And if someone, I'm an anti-fascist, but I wouldn't put it on my Twitter bio.
Yeah.
Because that is just a fine. That's a position. That's fine.
Yeah, I like women. They're all right. So. And the Russian people seem all right. To be honest,
I like
pretty
Russian.
based if you read their history.
And
I
think exactly, and I think that's one of the interesting things here is that clearly there are certain points of like real divergence on how the right and the left consume these things, but there is very much a common enemy, which you're calling the cathedral, and which other people are calling different things, but clearly we do have this enormous enemy of corporate capitalism, whatever you want to call it.
I just call them the globalists myself.
No, again, that's but you're talking about the same thing. The cathedral, the globalists, the elite, the bourgeoisie, if you want. It's all kind of referring to the same thing. It's this very particular class of people.
My barometer, my test of that kind of thing is when I speak to my mum, and she hears me say, I don't like the globalists, and she's been conditioned to hear I'm saying I'm a racist or I don't like other countries, and it's like no, that's not what it is, because she is very affected by the cathedral. She's a part of it. Not to like act like my mum's a fucking idiot or something, but she just
your mother is a globalist.
She's just very British, and she's on the side of Labour as opposed to
that's the thing. The BBC in this country, the BBC is a very significant part of the cathedral. And my parents, yeah. But my parents are just the same, and it's concerning.
We're just too big.
But I think Alfie, to your point, just very quickly, I think you are right that there are certain, I think you can say this of the left and the right. If I know one of your beliefs, then I know all of them. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're on the left and
there are certain beliefs that stand out so severely that you're like, okay, so because of that I can derive fucking everything else really fast.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Yeah, like if you tell me you're on the left, then I can generally speaking assume that you're probably pro-choice. You're probably sorry, go on.
But if you started with Alfie and him saying, I think the moon landings were faked, most people would go down the route of, so he's a Trump supporting nutcase, which he is.
Well,
But then you yourself are like, I'm a fucking communist. Right?
That's Alfie, you're an accelerationist.
Well, no, I'm not. No, I don't like accelerationism either. But although the Trump thing,
what does he like?
Accelerationist angle.
He just likes shit that's based.
Well, look. Let me put it this way, and I think we should stop soon. But we
do need to.
The election of Trump was disappointing, but the election of Biden was even more disappointing.
So uninspired.
Yeah, at least with the Trump thing, as your Slovene friend Zizek would say, at least there was an opportunity for some kind of rupture, in the system. Whereas with Biden, it's just like, it's all over. Anyway, listen, let's tell our listeners that's
the end of the episode.
Yeah, this is the end.
But look, I'm going to say it right now in the podcast. I just think that because Charlie's here right now, and we don't know how many times he'll be here because we might vote him off of the show. We should just put the game bit in this episode and just have it fucking all on there, because Patreon at this point, I appreciate the patrons, but they're clearly not in it for the fucking game aspect of it. So what difference does it make?
That's true, but
every now and then. What difference
I totally agree with that. However, we need to explain that. So can we take like a 5-minute break and then you'll get you back together stuff? We play a game, and because this is going out for all listeners, this might encourage people to join the Patreon because these are super fun. We've got 3 games that we play. This is the simplest one because obviously, Charlie, you're new. So basically what you got to do, you got to think of somebody. It's at Christmas with your family, you play a game sometimes where you put a name on your head, and you have to ask questions. It's yes or no if it's who you are. So you got to think of someone that's going on Ruben's head, but instead of putting it on his head, you just got to text me that person. So we'll take a minute to think about it, and you pick someone to go on Ruben's head. Ruben, you are going to think of someone that, like, in an imaginary way is going on my head, and you just got to text that to Charlie. And what do I then have to do? Think of someone to go on Ruben's head. No, wait.
My head, right?
Charlie's head and text it to
Everyone
Ruben.
has something on their head at some point.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So yes, I know who Charlie is. I just need to text that to Ruben now.
So Alfie, I'm texting you who's on Ruben's head.
Yeah. Okay. And Ruben, wait, what are you doing? Texting Charlie what's on my head?
I'm texting Charlie what's on your
head.
head.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Let me think. I got to think of someone quickly.
No, that's good. And then, I'll just talk while you guys have a think. So how this works is, we will ask questions in a sort of circle, and the answer is just yes or no. So other two people can answer it, and there can be discussion, whatever. And the first person who guesses their character correct is the winner. And in future episodes, we will play this, but also our more fun and complicated game Timeline. But that's only for patrons. So you get it for free this week, guys. And if you really need to hear these silly games, you should be on our Patreon channel and paying for our beers, which you should be doing anyway.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Right. You got your little guys ready, have you?
Yeah.
Have I received the requisite messages? It's quite obscure. If you think you'll get it, then that's fine. No, we'll go with it. Yeah. Okay, you're.
Great.
So somebody knows who I am. You guys know who I am. You both know, and we both know who Ruben is. But I should also know who Charlie is, Ruben.
Should he?
Yeah. So the idea is that only you don't know. Like, imagine we were sitting around the dinner table.
Am I the only person here that only knows one person, only knows one name?
No, you're supposed to know two. Everyone's supposed to know two.
Because I know.
I know who you two are. I don't know who I am.
Yeah. And I know. Yeah. Wait, do I know?
Oh, so Charlie, I need to tell you who Ruben. Wait, hang on. Who knows who Ruben is? No, we know that.
I just told you who Ruben is.
And I know who Charlie is.
Right, so now we need to create. So Charlie has done his job by and so have I. So who did you pick the name for me?
Ruben picked you.
I picked a name for you, Alfie. Yeah, I picked a name.
Yeah, so you just need to message that to Charlie.
Yes.
Yes.
And you've messaged me.
Yeah.
Telling me.
Everyone knows too.
So it's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Right. So what's the damn problem here? Right then, we'll go in a circle from me to Charlie so that he can go last, so that he can get a gist of the game. My question is, am I a man? You can both answer. It's a joint effort.
Well, it's
yes.
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 Okay, and I get to keep asking until I get a no.
Yeah.
Am I Caitlyn Jenner?
No.
Why'd you go for that?
Because you hesitated when I said, am I a man?
Oh, right.
All right, so you'll go, Ruben.
Right. Oh, okay, yes. I've got to think about 3 names at once. No,
you don't, mate. You just ask.
No, I'm thinking about me, but I'm also trying to think about the other, because I've got to, whatever. Am I a man?
Yes.
Oh. Am I alive?
Yes.
Oh. Am I American?
No.
All right.
Okay. Am I based?
That's such a nebulous question.
Very subjective.
I mean, he would think so, probably.
Yeah. Do you consider this individual to be based?
Are we allowing questions like this?
Is that too subjective?
Well, okay, no. That's not too subjective. That's exactly what this game is for. Yeah. This kind of. I think you're not based, and Ruben thinks you are.
Well, I'm thinking about what Charlie thinks because he's.
Charlie thinks he's based. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we've answered so much by saying that you don't think he is Charlie.
Am I Jordan Peterson?
Yeah.
Immediately, you shouldn't. For God's sake!
I was trying to make it easy.
Why do you make it so easy? We've already done JPP.
I didn't want to give him a hard time on his first day on the Live and podcast.
Who cares?
Excellent.
Okay, well, that's that one fucking done with.
Well, we can carry on. We can carry on.
Right, yeah, you're asking things, aren't you now, Alfie?
Yeah. All right, so what do I know? I'm a man, and I'm not Caitlyn.
Yeah, not Caitlyn Jenner.
Who's not a man. Right, am I American?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I someone I hate?
Most likely.
Yeah.
Am I a political figure of some kind?
In a sense.
Am I a media? Am I a YouTube figure?
No.
No.
All right.
You're going on, Ruben.
Okay, so am I European?
Yes.
All right. Am I a part of one of the nations of mainland Europe?
No.
Oh, okay, so he's English. We've got that. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you'll get there. This is hard, though. I mean, I don't know how hard mine is, but yours is hard. Okay, am I a sort of celebrity?
Yes.
Yeah.
Am I on TV like most of the time?
No.
No.
I wouldn't say so.
No.
Okay.
All right. I'm English. All right. Am I English as opposed to Welsh? Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
All right.
Yes.
Am I? Wait, did I already ask if I'm alive? Did I ask that?
Yeah, you did. You have already asked that, and the answer is yes.
I am alive. That's good. Good to know. Am I a YouTuber?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Am I Carl of Swindon?
Yes.
I just knew it. I was like, because Alfie suggested it was too obscure, and I thought, what would Charlie do for a first run? Well, it'll be fucking, what's his name?
Sargon of Akkad.
Sargon of Akkad, yeah.
Right then. Well.
Yeah.
Not bad, guys. Who was I out of interest?
Well, you could.
No, you got to keep going.
I'm not going on. I can't
going on. I did that. Well, you were Jeffrey Epstein.
I would have quite liked.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna go. I was gonna choose Satan for you, and then I was like, well, go a bit more realistic, as I went with Epstein.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think I could have gone on, and that was a good one. Good one, guys. No, and yeah, right. So what we will usually that is a little bit more complicated, and it happens every week. It takes half an hour.
You can choose fictional characters. I chose Solid Snake for. No, I chose Big Boss. Big Boss.
Took me a long time. That was
took me ages to get there because he thinks of Solid Snake as the main character, whereas I think of Big Boss as the main character.
I do indeed. And I think patrons, they get a better slice of that. But we've got several games, guys. So stick around in the Patreon at Lager and Ideology and join us for that. And that's been a good kind of. Hopefully, that's been a good sort of return episode. So I think thanks everyone for waiting a whole month and still listening. Anything last to say, guys?
Nah, nothing today.
No, it's good night, as it was to Cristiano's son.
Jesus Christ.